Hello, my wonderful friends. Sally the Seeker here. I hope you all are doing well. And today's video, we're going to start at the beginning. Not the beginning, but the beginning of testimonies where Attorney Zach Wittchow gives the opening statement for the prosecution. I know I played bits of it in another video recently, but I wanted to play the full thing. And then after that, their first witness, who is Sgt David Wanner. And of course, they've already, which I have videos way back on a lot of these, the alleged COVID protocol that Brooks was trying to get out of, and he was, all these shenanigans and him being rude. So, and when he would refuse to read his COVID test results, so the patient judge read them, and then he had his little he broke down and wept. I'm not sure where. Whenever he sheds tears, I am convinced they are only for himself. And then, of course, he needed medical attention because he received some sort of little cut. But of course, that was when he was fighting the deputies as they tried to take him into the other room. Well, excuse me. Now he is in the other room, and let's hope, at least for this part, he stays in there. But of course, he's still allowed to make his objections and his foolish sovereign citizen statements that have really come to just make my skin crawl, and, well, my detest for him grow even more. All right, so let's just get on with it.
We have the technology problem solved. So go ahead, the state may present its opening statement.
It was a cold and windy Sunday afternoon in November. Thousands of people were bundling up and going downtown to watch the annual Waukesha Christmas Parade. The event started off normal. There were dance teams, high school marching bands, local community groups, local businesses, all making their way down the parade route. The streets were lined with friends and family members and neighbors, people there to soak up the atmosphere. Kids ran into the street to grab candy from people who were throwing it in the parades. It sounds corny, but I think you'll see from the videos, there was a true sense of joy in the air. Darrell Brooks killed that joy. He replaced it with terror, trauma, and death. The evidence is going to show that Mr. Brooks left behind a trail of carnage and chaos as he made his way down Main Street through the parade route. The evidence will show that he left that crime scene, created that crime scene, in fact, because he was fleeing from another one where he had laid his hands on a woman, and where police involvement became inevitable. So as he careened down Main Street, swerving from curb to curb, hands glued to the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the road in front of him with a silent rage on his face, he hit the gas with his red Ford Escape and used it as a battering ram over and over again, striking men, women, and kids. In the end, Mr. Brooks killed 6 people. He injured dozens more and left a permanent scar on this community. We are going to present evidence to you over the next several days in chronological phases, in order of events, from start to end. I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to lay out for you the table of contents of this story. We're going to set the scene with Sgt Dave Wanner from the City of Waukesha Police Department. Sgt. Wanner was the highest-ranking police official working at the parade that day. He was the incident commander for the Waukesha Christmas Parade, and we are going to, with Sgt. Wanner's help, take you through this, which is the first of 3 maps that we will refer to repeatedly throughout this trial.
When you have the social credit system being put together, the Great Firewall, 626 million surveillance cameras, and we're just seeing China go back to the worst excesses of the totalitarian.
This map depicts the area that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days, the parade route. Now, for those of you not entirely familiar with downtown Waukesha, this is going to look like a bunch of gibberish, but once we get going and we repeatedly refer to these street names and the business names and the groups that were involved in this parade, I think it'll become like a second language to you. Sgt. Wanner will describe for you how the parade route ran from, if you look closely at the screens in front of you, the intersection of Main Street and White Rock Avenue. White Rock was a staging area for the parade groups and floats. And they made their way southeast on White Rock until they came to Main Street, and then they would make a right turn and head southeast down Main Street through the parade route until the very end as it wraps around to the south and runs into Wisconsin Avenue. The parade route then would continue to the east, making a left-hand turn on Wisconsin, but nothing really happens on Wisconsin Avenue. You're not going to hear any testimony about that. As you can see from this map, it depicts or represents each intersection where a squad car or a police officer was stationed. They're denoted by the little badge shields in the intersections. If you look closely, you can see little red lines, and Sgt. Wanner will describe how those represent the barricades that were placed at each intersection for security and safety purposes. Once we've got that established, we're going to move into the first chapter of this story, and you're going to hear about the origin of Mr. Brooks' rage that day. A violent domestic argument with Erica Patterson, his former girlfriend and the mother of his child. Erica Patterson is going to testify either today or tomorrow, hopefully today. She's going to tell you that in November of 2021, she was staying at the Women's Center, which is a shelter here in Waukesha. And on the day in question, November 21st of 2021, the defendant showed up in Waukesha in his red Ford Escape that she knew he drove, and he argued with her, and he harassed her, and he punched her in the face. And the thing about a swollen eye is it's tough to fake. You're going to hear evidence about how after, let me back up. You're going to hear evidence about how the defendant took Erica Patterson all over town that afternoon. From Frame Park, across the river, up Barstow Hill, back down to Frame Park. And at some point, after she was struck, after she sustained that injury, Erica called her friends because she needed help. And she had no one else to call. One of those friends is Corey Runkle. You're going to hear from Corey on the witness stand in this trial. Corey's going to say that she was Erica's roommate at the Women's Center. She had known Erica for a few weeks and they had grown close. And when she got the call from Erica that Erica needed help, Corey immediately responded to help. And she ended up finding Erica and Darrell Brooks in front of the White Rock School. If we go back, the White Rock School is on White Rock Avenue. It's on near the top right portion of the map. It's just south of Frame Park. And Corey is going to talk about how she found Erica and the defendant at this location, and she got into both a physical and a verbal altercation with Mr. Brooks. That altercation is captured on surveillance video, 2 surveillance videos actually. You're going to see both of them. You're going to see how the defendant was reacting that day. You're going to see what he looked like, what he was wearing, the red Ford Escape that he was driving. You're going to see how the defendant reacted once Erica's friends showed up and he lost his physical advantage over a woman. Erica and Corey will also testify that at some point during this scuffle, the police were called. And you're going to see a separate video, a squad video, from the responding officer that shows just down the block there was a marked squad car with its lights flashing, marking the entrance to the parade. Something that people in front of White Rock School would have seen. So the evidence is going to show that the defendant must have known. Once things got loud, and once there was more than just him and Erica on scene, the police were going to show up. So he took the coward's way out. You're going to see him in the video get into the driver's seat of that red SUV. Corey and Erica will tell you that no one else was in the car. And you're going to see him pull off on White Rock towards Main Street. You're going to hear from law enforcement officers who were positioned along the parade route. The officers who made their initial contact with the defendant, the first ones who tried to stop him. And the first one is Detective Tom Casey, the lead detective in this case. He's sitting at the state's prosecution table right behind me. He's going to tell you that he was working that day as security for the parade. He was working at Main and White Rock. He's the first law enforcement officer to come into contact with the defendant during this incident, face to face, or I think better describe it as face to windshield. He tried to stop the defendant, but there's only so much a man can do against an SUV. But he's going to tell you that he got so close, he got such a good look at Darrell Brooks' face, that from that witness stand, he'll be able to say to you definitively, Darrell Brooks, the man in orange on the video screen, is the man who was driving the red SUV in this case. You're going to hear from a few more officers. Officer Bryce Butcher and Officer Sonia Schneider. They were positioned at the intersection of Main Street and East Avenue, just a little bit further southwest in that map. You're going to hear them describe how they saw this red SUV approaching. They quickly realized it was not part of the parade. They quickly realized this was a problem. There are people, children, in the street, lining the street. And so they jumped into action. They tried to stop it. As the SUV started barreling towards them, Officer Butcher, and again, tried to get in the way. He put himself at risk trying to get in front of the vehicle. Couldn't stop it. Officer Schneider tried to redirect the vehicle up Buckley Street, making a right-hand turn. She'll tell you, and you'll see in the video, there was room. There was space. She couldn't do it. The defendant blew past her. And that's when the screams in the police radio start. You're going to hear from Jim Hawkinson, the battalion chief for the Waukesha Fire Department. He's going to tell you about the massive scope of the emergency response to this tragedy. He was in charge of the fire department that day. He's going to tell you about all of the units that had to respond to the scene, the massive amount of resources needed to triage and treat and transport all the victims. He's going to tell you about the response from other communities in southeast Wisconsin, the mutual aid call that went out, and all the other communities that came to help out. He's going to tell you about how Waukesha Memorial Hospital, just up the hill from the parade route, quickly reached capacity. And so everybody had to be diverted to other medical facilities. We'll transition then into the next chapter of this story, and you're going to hear from some of the people whose lives were forever changed by the defendant's terrible decisions that day. But I'll tell you right now, you're not going to hear from all of them. It wouldn't make sense. It's not necessary. We intend to present the evidence to you in an efficient and streamlined way. We will elicit testimony and introduce exhibits that cover every element of every single criminal charge in this case. But our goal is to avoid duplication of evidence and to avoid undue hardship on the victims and the witnesses who have already suffered so much.
For 12 years, I tried everything to clear my skin and lose weight, but nothing worked. Everyone thought I looked fit.
So the first witness in this part of the trial that you're going to hear from is Nicole White. She's the very first person, aside from Detective Casey, who was struck by the defendant on that day. She's going to tell you, as we look at this second of the three maps that we're going to repeatedly refer to, that she was marching with her co-workers and friends with Remax. You'll recognize the float, I think, in the videos because just like the commercials for Remax, there's a giant hot air balloon that shoots fire out of the basket, which is pretty cool. And she's going to tell you she was marching with her friends and her co-workers when, without any warning, she was hit from behind and knocked over. You're going to see video of that. Nicole White has a special significance in this case because, as the first person who was struck, she represents the point in time when Mr. Brooks was legally required to stop. You heard the judge read the hit and run jury instructions. And to summarize, in Wisconsin, anybody who's operating a motor vehicle who's involved in some kind of accident, they have a duty to stop, to investigate, to exchange information. Not only did Darrell Brooks not stop, the evidence will show that he sped up. The evidence will show that as his body count increased, so did his motive to get away. Nicole White, I think, is a good point here for me to explain to you or to summarize for you the charge of first-degree recklessly endangering safety. Now, again, the judge read the law to you all morning and a lot of the afternoon, and she's going to read it to you again at the end of the case, and you're going to have a binder with all these instructions written down for you, so you do not need to memorize them, okay? But we're going to talk about first-degree recklessly endangering safety. It's a crime where it's committed by someone who recklessly endangers the safety of another human being under circumstances that show utter disregard for human life. Let's talk about what the state's not required to prove with recklessly endangering safety. Not required to prove injury. This was a conscious decision in our charging decision. We're not going to get into medical records. We're not going to talk about the details of witnesses' injuries because it's not relevant, except to the extent that it proves that they were endangered and resulted in injury. But we don't need to get into who was hit or how hard or how long they've suffered. We just are going to prove to you that their safety was endangered. So, after Nicole White, we are going to talk, you're going to hear evidence about the first of the larger groups that was affected by this incident, the Waukesha South High School marching band. 10 kids in that band got either hit or run over. Here's the first example of our efficient presentation of evidence. You're not going to hear from any one of them. High school-aged kids, there's video showing each and every one of them getting run over. So instead, you're going to hear from their band director, Sarah Waymire Aparicio. She's going to come in and she's going to look at some still shots of the video. She's going to identify each of the 10 kids for you. You're then going to watch and listen to the video, and it'll be clear as day who's getting run over or hit. It'll be clear as day whose safety was endangered by Mr. Brooks that day. As we move further down the parade route, you'll hear evidence about the Burris Logistics Group. You'll hear testimony from Kelly Grabo about how she was marching with that group along with her young daughter. You'll see video of them. They're dressed up like the Who's from Whoville. You'll see them get hit. As we move further down the parade route, you'll hear testimony about the Green family. They're spectators along the parade route. Charles Green is going to come in and talk about how he was there with his family. He was sitting on the southeast corner of Main and Gasper across the street from Martha Merrill's Books. He'll talk about how his kids were seated on a portable bench, something that you bring to a parade to sit on, and how they got knocked off that bench when the defendant ran into them. The next point in the presentation of evidence will involve the Waukesha Blazers. I think it's important to point out you can't consider this evidence of each crime in a vacuum. You need to consider the entire incident. Because at this point, by the time we get to the Blazers, the defendant will have already hit or run over 15 people. You'll see in the video that at this point the defendant has actually increased his speed, and you'll hear from Detective Mike Carpenter with the Waukesha Police Department. He's going to come in and talk about speed analysis. He'll tell you that he's certified to use a software program that basically takes surveillance video, measures the amount of time it takes to travel a certain distance in that video and calculates an average speed over that distance. And he'll tell you that in video obtained from Bosco's Social Club, which is right in front of where the Blazers got hit, he'll tell you that that video in that area right before the Blazers got hit, the defendant was traveling in excess of 33 miles an hour. There were 5 victims in the Blazers. That includes Jackson Sparks, who was walking with his big brother Tucker. Cut down in the road before he had a chance to put any miles on his soul. Jackson was 8. He died 2 days later in the hospital. I think this is a good point to talk about the law of first-degree intentional homicide. Again, the judge provided the law to you. It'll be provided to you again at the conclusion of the trial. I want you to take a look at that second element. I don't know what the defense in this case is going to be. In fact, the defendant isn't required to put one on at all. He can sit there and not say a word throughout this trial, and that's perfectly within his right, and you can't hold that against him. And in fact, if he does that and we don't prove each and every one of these counts to you beyond a reasonable doubt, you must find him not guilty. That's the law. But if he does choose to present a defense, if he does raise any issues, I expect that he will likely claim that he didn't mean to kill these people. Take a look at that second bullet point. Keep that in mind as you're watching these videos, as you're learning about how this parade unfolded. Consider whether the defendant was aware that his conduct was practically certain to cause the death of another human being. We're going to move further down the parade route, and the next group after the Blazers is the extreme dance group. There were girls of really all ages in this group, from toddlers being pulled in strollers up to high school age teenage dancers. 15 victims, 15 people associated with this group either got hit or were very close to getting hit. That doesn't include 2 additional spectators who were watching the parade from the south side of Main Street near the 5 Points intersection, right in front of the extreme dance team as the defendant drove through. Girls in this dance group suffered catastrophic injuries. The group of victims also includes parents, grandparents, siblings, people marching with the group, but not necessarily as dancers. You're not going to hear from everybody who got hit. You're going to hear from the 2 instructors, the 2 young ladies who were tasked with teaching these girls these routines and marching with them and encouraging them and comforting them after the fact. And they're going to, in the video, identify for you where all these girls are positioned, and it'll be very clear the path of travel of the vehicle as it goes through that group of young ladies, who was hit and who was nearly hit. The next group down the parade route is Citizens Bank. And here we reach the second count of intentional homicide. Jane Kulik was marching with Citizens Bank with her friends, with her co-workers. This is the only count of homicide for which there is no clear video.
So sorry, guys. Excuse
how she
me.
died. So instead of watching video, you're going to hear evidence from her co-worker and from the man who was driving the truck pulling this float. And they're really the ones who are in the best position to observe exactly what happened to Jane Kulik as the defendant plowed through that parade route. And they're going to describe for you how she was struck, how she was run over. Medical examiner will explain that Jane Kulik's cause of death was multiple blunt force traumatic injuries. We'll move further down southwest along the parade route, and we'll learn about a group that was standing in front of the steaming cup, spectators again. Innocent people have nothing to do with anything. You're going to hear about 3 kids who were standing along with a bunch of others along the curb in front of Steaming Cup. And as the defendant swerved from the left side of the street as he hit Jane back to the right side of the street as he was avoiding the vehicle that was ahead of him, clipped the curb, hit these 3 kids. Then we're going to move in to the next group in the parade route, which is the Dancing Grannies. This is the deadliest point in the parade. 7 people in this group were struck. 4 of them died. You're going to hear from witnesses, members of the Dancing Grannies group, who will come in and they will describe being completely caught off guard. They will describe seeing pom-poms in the air, and the next thing they knew, there were bodies on the ground before the pom-poms hit the ground. You will learn about Bill Ospel, who was marching in a support capacity. He was there to support his wife Lola and their friends, the rest of the Dancing Grannies, just walking along the parade route trying to be helpful. And as the defendant swerved around the Dancing Grannies vehicle, which is a white SUV, you'll see it in the video, swerved around the right side, he hits Bill. The medical examiner is going to tell you that Bill Ospel cause of death was multiple blunt force traumatic injuries. You'll learn about Tamara Durand, marching with the Grannies. This is her first parade. You'll see a diagram of where she was positioned. You'll see video of her getting struck. The medical examiner will tell you that Tamara Durand, cause of death, multiple blunt force traumatic injuries. You'll hear about Lee Owen, another Dancing Granny, positioned right next to Tamara, who had just begun one of her favorite routines, walking in a winter wonderland. She got hit. You'll learn about Ginny Sorensen. You'll learn that Ginny was walking at the front of the group carrying the banner. You'll learn that Ginny was normally a coach for the group. Normally she rode in the vehicle in the back so that she could provide feedback and critique to her dance mates. But she filled in at the last moment today and helped carry the banner. You'll see video of Ginny getting struck. Medical examiner will tell you that Ginny Sorensen's cause of death was multiple blunt force traumatic injuries. You'll hear more speed analysis testimony at this point. You're going to hear from Mike Smith with the Wisconsin State Patrol, who's going to testify very similarly to how Detective Carpenter is going to testify about speed analysis. Basically, he takes surveillance video, this time from Curry Insurance, which is on the south side of Main Street. It shows the Grannies getting struck. They measure point to point, and measure the time between those 2 points, and calculate an average speed over that distance, which is roughly from Clinton Street up until the camera cuts out. They'll tell you that at that point, where the defendant crashed through the Dancing Grannies group, he was traveling at approximately 32 miles an hour. The 8th and final group that was struck by the defendant in this case is the Catholic Communities of Waukesha. This is a faith-based organization. It consists of members of multiple local Catholic churches who got together that Sunday afternoon to spread a little Christmas cheer. There is not great video, and perhaps that's for the best, of this group getting struck. In total, there were 19 victims in this group. In what little you can see from the video, you can see the defendant's taillights swerving from the left side of the street to the right. You can see them bouncing up and down. There are no speed bumps in that section of the road. The next phase of the evidence will involve the manhunt. how authorities found the defendant, took him into custody, and the statements he made after he was placed under arrest. You will hear from Officer Bryce Skolton, who was positioned, if you look at this third of the 3 maps I referenced, on the very top of this map at the intersection of Main Street and Wisconsin. Officer Skolton was positioned at that point to direct the parade route to make a left-hand turn from Main Street onto Wisconsin, to stop any traffic coming from the other directions. He saw the defendant come around that corner. He saw the defendant drive right at him as he's standing in the middle of the road. And as the defendant went around him to the left and went south, Officer Skolton fired 3 rounds from his service weapon. All 3 rounds hit the car. None of them hit the defendant. You will hear from another police officer who was not on duty that day. He just happens to be a police officer. His name is Officer Ralph Salyers. He's from the Wauwatosa Police Department. If you take a look at that map, he's going to describe to you being on the sidewalk, leaving the parade. He was walking past Les Paul Middle School. He's going to describe hearing a loud commotion. He's going to describe seeing a red SUV with just utterly totaled front end damage coming to rest in a driveway at 338 Maple Avenue. You're going to see video of the defendant in the red SUV pulling into the alley behind 338 Maple, and then a few moments later you'll see what appears to be the defendant coming back onto the screen and running away from the vehicle, apparently in a hurry, apparently aware that he had done something terribly wrong. You're going to hear from a series of witnesses between that point and the defendant's arrest, where they will describe the defendant approaching them, contacting them, asking them to use their phone. Because he was in such a rush when he ditched his SUV, he left his phones behind. Then you're going to hear from Daniel Ryder, and I think the evidence will show Daniel Ryder really is a good embodiment of the spirit of Waukesha. Not knowing what Mr. Brooks had done, Daniel Ryder opened his home to the defendant. The defendant showed up at his front door without any shoes on, with a t-shirt, said he was cold, said he needed to use the phone. Daniel Ryder let him inside, gave him a sandwich, let him use the phone, and then gave him a coat. A few minutes later, the police showed up. You're going to see body cam video of that arrest. You're going to hear from Officer Rebecca Carpenter that she responded to that area around where Daniel Ryder lives because of reports of a man knocking on doors. She takes him into custody. He identifies himself on the body cam video. They search him, and in his pocket they find a key to the red Ford Escape used in this attack. You're going to hear from a series of officers who retraced the defendant's steps that night, recovered surveillance video showing the path that he took, the path that's depicted here in the third map that I'm showing you. You're going to hear how they recovered his sandal, his sweatshirt along the escape route. You're going to hear from Detective Jay Carpenter with the City of Waukesha Police Department, and he's going to talk to you about the defendant's statements after he was taken into custody. I'm going to let that interview speak for itself, other than pointing out for you that you will, I think, quickly learn a few main points about the defendant on the night that this happened. He was lucid. He was aware. He was intelligent. He was probing for information. And he was deceptive. We're going to then wrap up with testimony from people who plugged any of the remaining holes in the investigation. You'll hear from crime lab analysts about DNA evidence, about finding the defendant's DNA on the steering wheel of the red Ford Escape. You're going to hear from Wisconsin State Patrol Inspector Ryan Schultz. He's going to testify about the mechanical inspection that he did on this vehicle. In case you were wondering if there were any issues that would have prevented Mr. Brooks from stopping or from pulling over, he's going to quickly put those concerns to bed. He conducted that mechanical inspection, no problem with the brakes, The accelerator didn't stick. There were no mechanical problems that would have prevented Mr. Brooks from stopping. Finally, we're going to close our presentation of the evidence, not with a witness, but with an experience for you. You are going to go to a secure location, and you're going to have a chance to see the murder weapon with your own eyes. You'll be able to see that red Ford Escape. I want to close now with a few points about how the evidence relates to the law in this case. There are, obviously, we've gone through the 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, but in addition to those homicide counts, there are 6 counts of hit and run involving death. Those are separate charges. The evidence will support convictions on all of them, all 12 counts of homicide. But they involve the same 6 victims. Another point I want to bring to your attention is that for each count of first-degree intentional homicide and each count of first-degree recklessly endangering safety, if you find the defendant guilty of any of those counts, you have to answer a second question. Did he commit that crime while using a dangerous weapon? And here the evidence will show that he didn't use a gun or a knife to commit these crimes. He used 3,500 pounds of steel, rubber, and glass. The defendant's also charged with 2 counts of felony bail jumping. You'll hear evidence to support those charges, which includes the fact that the defendant was charged with a felony offense in a case in Milwaukee County and released from custody subject to conditions of bail. And then he was charged with another felony offense in a separate case in Milwaukee County and released from custody subject to conditions of bail. And those conditions of bail included requirements that he not commit any new crime. And those conditions of bail were in effect on November 21st of 2021. We have dozens of video clips to show you. You're going to have notebooks and writing utensils while we present this evidence to you. It's a lot to keep track of. And when you go back into the deliberation room, it might be difficult while you're deliberating to remember which video was about which victim or which incident or which group. And so my suggestion to you is that as we go through these videos, you're free to do whatever you want with your notes, but my suggestion would be as we go through these videos, they each will be labeled with an exhibit number. And so I recommend that you keep track of which exhibit number corresponds with which video. That way, while you're deliberating, if you want to see those videos again, you can ask for them by exhibit number. Can't guarantee that you'll be able to see any or all of them, but you can ask. I'm done now. I want to close on one final point, and that is, on behalf of the state of Wisconsin, I want to say thank you. You're serving in what is the greatest criminal justice system in the history of the world, and that's because of the 16 of you. It's because a group of citizens, randomly selected, come in and make the final, ultimate determination between guilty and not guilty. That's unique in this world. It's special. And so, we're going to go through this evidence. We're going to be mindful of your time. We know how valuable it is. We're going to be efficient, but we have a lot to get through. A lot. And at the conclusion of all that evidence, District Attorney Opper is going to stand up here and she's going to ask you to render verdicts consistent with the evidence, to find the defendant guilty of each and every count. Thank you.
And of course, when I pause, we're left with the cold, lifeless, soulless stare of Darrell. But I thought that Attorney Wittchow did an excellent job of the opening statement. Of course, I'm no expert, lawyer, anything like that, but just as a, I guess you could say as a juror, or just me, I thought he did pretty good bringing out the points of, of what they were going to try to, to prove, which really this bozo can prove as we all know now, this bozo can prove it on his own. But I've also stated before that I thought Attorney Wittchow was great for the women on the stand, like Corey and, of course, Erica and many others. Excuse me. I just feel like he has this protective nature in him, and, you know, he's not going to let Brooks do anything to them. Not that the others wouldn't, but I just think that was, I wonder if that was a good, you know, something planned, because just to show that, yes, a man can treat a woman with respect and dignity, you know, unlike this thing. Well, so let's proceed, and I'm sure there's going to be some sort of banter. And then the Sgt David Wanner will take the stand to make his testimony. All right, ready? Sit back. Take a deep breath.
Mr. Brooks, my first question to you is, will you be making an opening statement at this point or deferring until your case? Meaning the defense portion of the case.
I will be deferring at this time, Your Honor. I need a little more adequate time to...
Sorry, I'm going to adjust the volume a little if I can. Sorry. Oh, no, it's okay.
All right, then the court will honor that request, advise the jury he's deferring his opening statement until a later point in the proceedings.
He's not going to improve from now. He might as well do it now, but...
I am going to just take a short break so I can talk some logistics with the parties to determine whether it makes sense to start with a witness tonight yet. It's 4 o'clock, a little bit after, or wait until tomorrow. So either way, you'll come back because you'll either hear testimony or I'll read an instruction for you. But at this point, the jury may be excused.
Clearly, he's going to have something to say. Does he look remorseful to anyone?
Attorney Opper, your first witness, how long would that witness be?
Our first witness is Sgt Wanner. I expect his testimony to take 10 to 15 minutes on direct. I would ask that you would hear his testimony this evening, or this afternoon, Your Honor. He was supposed to have left town at about noon today to take his daughter on a college visit in Kentucky. He's delayed his departure so he could provide his testimony. And if we can get him in and out, he will leave at 5 o'clock and arrive at midnight at his destination. I have a second witness, if the court would hear me, who's here as well. Her testimony probably would also take about 15 minutes on direct, maybe a little longer. No? Mr. Wittchow says no. She has traveled here from Janesville. Her transportation is also difficult, and so she's here and ready to go if the court would indulge those two witnesses this afternoon.
It certainly seems reasonable. Mr. Brooks, my question to you then is, do you want to come back over for the testimony of those witnesses?
I would prefer to. I'm still kind of taken aback by not being able to know exactly how many witnesses are expected to testify, and not being able to turn in my own witness list.
Well, Mr. Brooks, you've been given copies of the witness list. The state's offered you a flash drive with all of the exhibits to streamline what will be presented at trial versus what is in discovery, so you've had ample opportunity to review those. I'm happy to bring you back. I need you to pledge to me that you will follow the rules of procedure and evidence, that you will only interrupt if you have an objection. That objection needs to be founded in law. And then you need to pledge to me that you will honor whatever decision I make so that the testimony of these individuals can proceed within the time frame that the prosecution has indicated it will take. You, of course, will have an opportunity to cross-examine them. Are you willing to follow the rules of courtesy and decorum and the rules of procedure and evidence?
From what you explained yesterday, the objections you said have to be like, I think you said like 3 words. Is the way to
Notice how he never really
So
answers her question.
Well,
record you
I can give you up to a sentence. What I am trying to avoid, sir, are what are called speaking objections. The idea behind that is that you give me just a little bit of information so that I can either make a determination or, if appropriate, send the jury back out so that I can then hear arguments from the parties. Some objections really are one word, hearsay, maybe 3 words, calls for speculation, things of that nature. So if you're willing to abide by that procedure, then you can come back to this courtroom.
I can't really definitively give an answer right now to that.
So annoying.
So you're not willing to follow the rules of courtesy and decorum and procedure and evidence?
That's not what I said.
Well,
That's why I'm asking the clarification question, sir.
I was clear in what I said. I don't think
you're not ever clear.
make that determination right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask it this way, sir. You may reclaim your right to be present if you are willing to conduct yourself consistently with the decorum and respect inherent in the concepts of courts and judicial proceedings. Are you able to do that, sir?
I thought I have.
Please.
Sir, it's I think, a fairly simple question. I'm asking you if you are willing to conduct yourself appropriately.
I have conducted myself appropriately.
Please.
I'm not asking about your past behavior. I'm asking if you're willing from this point forward, for the purposes of the testimony of 2 witnesses, to conduct yourself appropriately.
I have.
That's not my question. That's not the answer I'm looking for. I'm not asking if you have. I'm asking if you're willing, going forward, to conduct yourself appropriately during the questioning of these 2 witnesses. Yes or no?
I'm going to end up getting put back over here eventually.
Yeah, leave him the hell over there.
Mr. Brooks, I'm further advising you, I'm looking for a direct answer of yes or no, and that your failure to give me a yes or no answer will be considered by this court to be non-responsive. So let me ask you the question one more time. Are you willing to conduct yourself appropriately during the questioning of these 2 witnesses?
To be 100% honest, I cannot answer that.
You know, so he's done this from day one all the way to the end. What a nightmare that has to have been for those who had to deal with him every single day. Ugh. And those who have to deal with him now. I don't even know. But that is definitely a sovereign thing. I was kind of looking at some videos, but they're very brief. I don't think any of them that I viewed were murder cases. So, but the people were still answering or not answering, and not using their names and thinking. There was one. It's something about they don't think that they have to have a driver's license, and so if they don't have a driver's license, they're not expected to follow the traffic rules. I mean, it's so idiotic and annoying. Isn't there some island that we could put all the sovereign people on and, let them do their thing? I mean, because he's in prison for 1,000 years, so at least we could be comforted by that. But he might drive the others crazy. All right, here we go. I said my piece.
All right, then, based on that answer, which is non-responsive to the question that I asked, he has not given me a pledge or indication of a willingness to conduct himself appropriately going forward, and based on that, he'll remain where he is. He will remain unmuted, and so if you have an objection, you can lodge that objection within according to the rules of evidence, sir. All right, with that, let's have the jurors brought back in, and we'll start with the taking of testimony.
One quick second to put this up.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't think it'll take long. I'll call one.
Let's
Not responsive.
Oh, shut up. You're done.
You did not answer yes or no. Do we need to back out? Do I need? I wanted to see if the camera angle. So
I really don't have time for you right now, little man.
Not going to answer any other questions at this point. The state's setting up a map for use with a witness. I want to make sure that it's something that is viewable on the witness camera that is being transmitted into the courtroom where you are seated. So let me back up.
Oh, don't talk now. No. See, he's just, gosh, guys.
Attorney Opper, you want to look at the screen above and tell me if you think that accurately depicts what you're going to go over?
Oh, God, I said it before. Look at him all hunched over. Could you just imagine seeing his face covering the whole screen? It'd be terrifying. Looks like a damn fool, as always.
Do you think with where that chair is, the
They're not. I have other things to do, It's not all about you.
Oh, that would be a good idea.
Love it.
No, you're not muted yet.
Not yet.
Mr. Brooks, if you're asking me to make a judicial determination, I've already rendered a decision about where you're going to be.
And I think he should have stayed there a lot more, in my humble opinion.
All right, I'm going to mute you, sir. Now we're moving on to that part of the procedure, since you are, you're not following the protocol that I've set in place, that you are back to one of these sovereign tactics about have I made a judicial determination. The record speaks for itself, sir. I'm not going to make a further record on that, nor will I answer the question about am I making a judicial determination. I've made a decision, and that decision is you will remain in the other courtroom. Once the jury is brought back in, I will unmute so that you can lodge objections, but if you interrupt without making an objection and just start talking about a judicial determination, then I'm going to mute you once again, and the procedure for objecting will require that you raise your sign, write it out, and provide it to the bailiff, who will provide it to the court so that I can rule on it. If that slows things down, then so be it, but that's the procedure that I'm going to follow. All right, the jurors can be brought in then. As a reminder, I'm not requiring an all rise even for the jurors. I understand you may do it, but there's a reason why I'm not requiring it. So
Interesting, because she does do it later. Already can't find your paperwork, can you?
Oh, excellent. Thank you. You can start passing them out. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have a seat, and the writing materials will be passed out. Our intent is to have the state call its first 2 witnesses. And then once that is done, I have an instruction to read, and then we'll break for the day, and I'll consult with the parties before I let you know what time you should report tomorrow. And keep in mind, my time I say we start for court might be different than your report time. All right. All the materials passed out? Very well. Then the state may call its first witness.
Thank you, Judge. State call Sgt Dave Wanner.
Good afternoon, Sergeant. If you would please make your way to the witness stand. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand, and my clerk, Teresa, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat, at least initially, or do you want him to stay standing?
No, actually, you can start out seated, please.
Very well. Sir, would you please state your first and last names for the record and spell each?
Yes. My name is Sgt David, D-A-V-I-D, Wanner, W-A-N-N-E-R.
Thank you. Go ahead, Attorney Opper, your witness.
Thank you. Sir, how are you employed?
I'm a patrol sergeant with the City of Waukesha Police Department.
How long have you worked in law enforcement?
18 years.
And as patrol sergeant, what are your general duties and responsibilities?
I oversee officers across all shifts that are assigned to the patrol division.
I want to direct your attention to the date of November 21, 2021. Did you work that day?
Yes.
Were there any events occurring in the city of Waukesha that afternoon?
The Waukesha Christmas Parade was that afternoon.
Has the Christmas parade been held in years prior to 2021?
Yes, every year that I've been employed at the police department, we've had a Christmas parade.
And is it typically that third week in November before Thanksgiving?
Yes, every year that I can remember it has been.
Okay. Is there any planning or preparation that goes into holding a parade in Waukesha?
Yes, there are meetings with the group that's putting on the parade in advance. There's also a group of individuals that prior to the parade, usually the Friday before, will post no parking signs along the parade route. There's a group from our city garage or Department of Public Works. They'll put out barricades at the designated intersections where we request them to put them out.
And what about manpower? What type of manpower would you devote to an event like this, sir?
It's rather significant given the large area that a parade like this encompasses, the estimated amount of attendance at the parade between detectives, police officers, supervisors, reserve officers, community service officers. I would say we have in excess of 30 additional bodies planned that day just to handle the parade itself.
You mentioned the use of individuals such as reserve officers and community service officers, I think you said. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are those sworn law enforcement officers?
They are not sworn, no.
What is their role or function?
The reserve officer group is a group of people who volunteer their time to help with events like parades. They're given training in directing traffic and closing streets down. A community service officer is a paid position. They're part-time employees, usually younger individuals looking to learn more about a career in law enforcement.
So sorry, guys.
That also parking attendants would be assisting in this endeavor?
Correct. We're usually looking to get as many extra bodies as we can, and the assistance from our parking agents is usually required for this event as well.
And this would be in addition to the sworn law enforcement officers that are assigned to work the parade.
Correct.
And obviously you still need other officers to patrol the city, correct?
Yes.
Where is the parade held?
The parade takes up a large portion of our downtown area. There's a staging area that the floats before the parade that they're all instructed to assemble in a particular area along White Rock Avenue between Niagara Street and Main Street. And that's about a 3-hour process of getting all the parade participants into that area and lined up accordingly. The parade itself runs along Main Street from White Rock westbound to the Veterans Park area, where it makes a turn and then heads up Wisconsin Avenue and ends near the Waukesha Public Library.
Sir, if I could ask you to stand up and refer to the diagram behind you. This is a map that's been marked as State's Exhibit number 1. Do you see that sticker in the bottom right-hand corner?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's a little tight up there.
Sorry.
But if you could start in the upper right-hand corner of the map, and if we put up the digital copy of the map as well, I know it's hard to see, but then we'd have to do the screen share again. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, I'm going to ask the paralegal to please put up State's Exhibit number 1 on the digital copy as well. Sorry, we have to.
Awkward pause. Surprised Darrell hasn't said anything.
All right, Madam Clerk, thank you. We're ready here.
As you present that, you know you can hit that little arrow. That will get rid of those extra things that aren't needed. Go ahead.
All right, and Ms. Gussie, if you could zoom in on the upper right-hand corner, please. There you go. All right, sir, you can use the map, the big map in front of you, please, and the jury can follow along with the digital copy if they want. So starting in the upper right-hand corner. Yes. What's up there, please?
That is Frame Park.
And what's at Frame Park?
Frame Park has a lot of, it's got a playground for children, there's a very large baseball diamond, different shelters, there's a formal garden, there's a boat launch. It's a very large park in our city that encompasses a lot of different activities.
Is the boat launch shown on Exhibit 1?
Yes, right here.
Okay. And the waterway that's shown on the exhibit, what is that waterway?
That is the Fox River.
Now, is the parade route shown on Exhibit 1?
Sorry, Attorney Opper, give me 1 second. Mr. Brooks, just a reminder, you're not muted. All right, I'm sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
Oh, I wonder what he's.
I thought I was muted. I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you so much.
I wonder what he said.
Go ahead and point out the parade route, please.
So the parade route in this map is essentially this purple line. This area here is what I referred to earlier as a staging area. And then actually at this corner right here, westbound is where the parade route would follow. Down to the corner here, I refer to this as Veterans Park. That's that area there. And then it would turn up Wisconsin Avenue and end around the library right here, which is that green area.
Okay, and we're just putting that up on the digital display too right now. Now, on this map, sir, we've designated several points along the parade route to reflect where various officers were positioned. Is that correct?
Yes.
And could you just briefly walk us through it? I don't need you to name every officer, but just point out the intersections and what was located at each intersection using Exhibit 1.
Sure. I was here at
Definitely had a lot of
the
police
intersection of
officers.
Hartwell and White Rock. I had a police SUV, an unmarked police vehicle, trying to maintain the integrity of the route and keeping the road shut down. Here we had various officers. It's kind of a mixed use of barricades, marked police vehicles, police tape, just in an order to keep the streets shut down and make sure that there's a visible representation that the streets are not open.
Please keep going down, westbound down Main Street, please.
Sure. So we come to Buckley and East Avenue here. Both sides of the intersection shut down with barricades. We come down further on West Main Street to Martin Street. The red line here signifies a barricade was in place there. At Main Street and North Barstow Street, again, barricades on both sides of the intersection there. Gaspar and East Main Street, a barricade. We also had a marked police fleet, as we did at other places where the yellow is signifying that. This is our 5 points area, as we call it, kind of a larger intersection with roads in different directions here. So at this intersection, we had a use of barricades, police tape, police vehicles. It's just a very large intersection to be able to shut down just with one of those things. So it kind of becomes a mixed use of different tools that are available to us. We have Clinton Street and Main Street here. Again, barricades on both sides of the intersections, along with officers. Maple Avenue and East Main Street, barricades and reserve officers. And then we come around toward the Veterans Park area, again, another very large intersection where we had an officer and multiple barricades shutting off the traffic. And then along Wisconsin Avenue here, we had one point at Maple Avenue where we had a CSO along with a barricade. And
Right now, you're pointing at the very bottom edge of the map, correct?
very bottom here. And then from that point east, the parade kind of disassembles with floats going different ways depending upon their size and maneuverability at the end of the parade route.
This map, Exhibit number 1, is oriented north, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The items, and I know this is like a vision test for everybody, but on the map, the yellow boxes represent what, please?
The yellow boxes on this map represent police vehicles that were utilized in the parade.
Okay, and what about the blue boxes?
The blue boxes are the names of personnel assigned. Where you see an RO, that would be a reserve officer, PA would be a parking agent, CSO would be our community service officer, OFC would be an officer.
All right. The reserve officers and non-sworn officers, would they be wearing a police uniform or some type of designation?
Yes, they all have.
Hold on. There's an objection.
Oh,
It's
dear.
overruled. You may answer.
All personnel on the parade route are in uniforms. Additionally, everyone,
Getting
it's
warmed up
part of our
now.
policy that they are required to wear traffic vests, which would have been a yellow and could have been blue and yellow or orange and yellow traffic vest that says police on it.
Okay. I'd like to go back to the area on White Rock where you were located, where the units were staging, correct?
Yes.
Now, can you describe for us where the road was actually shut off by police so that no motorist could actually travel down the road?
Sure. I mean, this actually further north than here, it's off the map, is where we had our first point of shutdown. It was at White Rock Avenue and Niagara Street. We used Niagara Street to divert any traffic that would have come that direction. So then along here, they would shut down at Niagara. There's another street called Perkins where it was shut down. And then right here is Baxter Street, where we had the street shut down. Additionally, here along the staging route, North Hartwell Avenue here was shut down on both sides of it to ensure no traffic entered into the staging area while that space was occupied.
All right, and before I have you sit down, there's two other areas designated on the map I'd like to ask you about. This is on the left, upper left quadrant of the map. On the north side of the Fox River, there's something indicated as the Barstow Hill. Do you see that on the map, sir?
Yes. Yes, right here by the green line.
What's the Barstow Hill?
The Barstow Hill is just a very steep hill that more or less connects our downtown to a neighborhood and is a thoroughfare of traffic coming and going from the downtown area.
Okay, that's Barstow Road there?
Correct.
Okay. And then just to the right of that, there's something marked as a mobile gas station, is that correct?
Yes.
Overruled.
And there is a gas station at that intersection, sir?
Yes, there's a mobile gas station at the bottom of the Barstow Hill.
What's he even objecting to?
All right, please have a seat, sir. What time of day do you start sending officers out to their locations along the route here?
At 1 p.m. is when the initial few officers head out to secure the staging area. So they're out there from 1 o'clock until about 3:30. Between 3 and 3:30 is when the rest of the personnel assigned to the parade would have arrived at their locations along the route.
All right. And I assume you're in some, you know, we just lost part of the Polycom.
Well, we'll pause. It won't happen otherwise.
And we can take that down for now. We don't need the state table displayed at the moment.
Mr. Brooks, we lost you for a second. As soon as we knew it was down, we stopped. We didn't take any additional testimony. I just want to confirm you can see and hear me.
Yeah, I can hear.
And you can see the 4 cameras, so the witness as well? All right, thank you.
Okay, so there's somebody that's running the parade as far as lining up the participants and making sure everybody that's walking in the parade is where they're supposed to be, correct?
Correct.
Is there a title for that person?
Boy, I wouldn't know.
Your objection is noted. It's overruled. He may testify about the question asked.
Or
Please.
is there somebody that you were dealing with directly that was kind of responsible for the units of the parade and you're responsible for the security of the parade?
Yes, there was a
Oh, he's warmed up now, folks.
There is a lady from the Chamber of Commerce who put on the parade that just prior to the parade starting, I had a face-to-face contact with to inform her that the route was ready for the parade.
Now, how do you know that? How do you know that the route was ready to go?
Between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, I had driven the route several times within the parade route on the street that was shut down. It was my duty as the incident commander of the parade to make sure that the officers or personnel assigned to the parade were all in their location, that all the barricades were in place, that there was no holes in the parade route that we missed in the planning, and as a final security sweep of the route just to ensure everything was in place as we had planned for it to be.
Can you estimate how many spectators were present?
Objection.
At what time?
Thousands. Once the parade had started, I was not on the route anymore. I think the last time I drove the route itself would have been just before 4 o'clock as my final lap through.
Okay. And there's spectators on both sides of the road, north and south sides of Main Street?
Correct.
And all the way from Hartwell all the way down to Veterans Park at the end there near Wisconsin Avenue?
Yes, I'd say the majority of this.
Hold on, there's been an objection.
Oh.
Go ahead, what's your objection?
That is hearsay. You can't know.
Know
where
what?
everybody was at.
Hearsay. Oh,
The
Lord.
objection is noted, it is overruled based upon the foundation previously laid by the witness.
Hearsay.
Go ahead.
Oh, Lord.
The spectators are primarily from the intersection of White Rock and Main Street westbound.
So you were satisfied it was appropriately safe to start the parade, is that right, sir?
Yes.
What did you do?
I had face-to-face contact with the organizer of the parade. I indicated to her that I checked the route and from the police side of things that we were ready for the parade to proceed, and let her know that she could begin whenever she was ready.
About what time of day was that?
It was right about 4 p.m.
And you had mentioned the units were staging on White Rock near where you were posted, is that right?
Yes.
And did you see, as the units would enter the parade route, then they all kind of move forward, I'm assuming?
Yes, the
Overruled.
parade participants are set up on either side of White Rock Avenue, and they're kind of funneled together into almost a zipper type fashion as they enter the parade route.
And as they march forward towards the parade route, then at some point is the road behind them vacant?
Correct.
And what do you do when that happens?
We try to cause as little disruption in the city. Shutting down White Rock Avenue, it's a very major thoroughfare in the city, and having it shut down for that extended period of time causes some pretty significant traffic problems. So as the road is no longer occupied by parade participants, we try to open up the road from behind them, keeping the back of the parade shut down, always taking into account a street for a car to turn off onto. So,
Did you remain in that same position near White Rock and Hartwell?
yes.
And do you remember how you had your squad positioned?
Objection, that's hearsay.
Overruled.
I had my squad positioned across White Rock Avenue in an east-west fashion, essentially in the middle of the roadway. The road is much wider than the SUV squad I was driving is. I positioned it that way to give a visual representation to motorists that the road wasn't open.
And is your squad marked or unmarked?
It is unmarked.
Objection, irrelevant.
It's relevant. The answer may stand. I'm sure if you hear an objection, sir, that you wait till I rule on it too. Thank you.
Are there red and blue lights on your squad car, sir?
Yes.
Objection, irrelevant.
Here we go.
Overruled. The answer may stand.
Idiotic objections.
Did you have your red and blue lights activated as it was parked across the roadway?
Objection, irrelevant.
Oh, he's wound up now.
Yes.
Lord help us all.
You remember hearing something about a disturbance near the boat launch?
Yes.
Objection, hearsay.
Are you offering it for the...
Foundational, Your Honor.
Or it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. The objection is overruled. He may answer. I believe he answered yes, and it may stand.
All right. What do you remember hearing about an incident at the boat launch?
When I was near my position on Hartwell and White Rock, I was speaking with one of our reserve officers. We were discussing the proper timing of the opening of the road. And I overheard actually on his police radio that he was wearing squads that were not assigned to the parade being sent to a fight at Frame Park that involved knives.
Were you aware of any vehicles being associated with that fight?
Objection, irrelevant.
Overruled. You may answer.
I did not hear of any vehicles associated.
What do you remember next, sir?
I remember seeing and hearing squads responding to this this fight at Frame Park. And at that time, we were still focused on opening up the roadway, and I made my way back toward my unmarked police vehicle, and I looked to my right or to the north down White Rock Avenue, and I saw a red SUV traveling toward me at a high rate of speed.
What do you mean by a high rate of speed, sir?
Objection, that's hearsay.
Overruled. He
Not
may
if
answer.
he says it. Good Lord.
I believe the vehicle is traveling in excess of 40 miles per hour.
Jeez, man.
What's the posted speed limit there on White Rock Avenue?
It's a 25 mile per hour zone.
What about Main Street in downtown Waukesha? What's the posted speed limit there, sir?
The speed limit
Irrelevant.
Overruled. It's relevant.
the speed limit throughout the parade route is 25 miles per hour.
What did you do when you saw this red SUV traveling at a high rate of speed?
Objection, leading the witness.
The objection is noted. It's overruled.
Ridiculous.
When I saw the red SUV traveling toward me at a high rate of speed, I used both hands and waved them overhead like this in an attempt to catch the attention of the driver.
Were you dressed in a police uniform, sir?
Yes.
And just put on the record when the witness, so that's clear, placed both hands over his head in what I would describe as a waving kind of back and forth at a diagonal gesture. Thank you. Go ahead.
Did the car continue in your direction, or the SUV?
Yes, it did.
What did you observe the path of travel for the SUV to be?
Objection, that's hearsay.
Mr. Brooks, it's not hearsay. Your objection is overruled. You may answer.
Even as the trial gets
Could
on,
you state the question one more time?
Sure. Where did you see the SUV go? Better question.
Objection, irrelevant.
well, yeah, let's try a different word.
The SUV entered the parade route.
I want you to describe what you remember seeing as it passed your location, please.
As I was waving my hands overhead, I was approximately 6 feet from where the SUV was driving. As the driver passed essentially in front of me by about 6 feet, I could see the operator of the vehicle and just a dazed, straight, focused look straight ahead, not looking at anyone.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? How many times have we heard other people testify about that? Excuse me. So sorry, guys. I got allergies going on. Apologize. But over and over, different people, police officers, witnesses, victims, describing the same thing. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Did the driver appear to respond to your efforts to stop the vehicle?
There was absolutely no response.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice the car slow down in any fashion?
No, in fact,
Hearsay.
It's not hearsay. It's overruled. You may answer.
Oh, please learn hearsay. But he never did.
as the SUV passed me, I looked over the hood or the top of the police vehicle that I had positioned on the road there, fully expecting that as it passed that I would see the car slam on its brakes as it realized it had entered the parade route, figuring it was a lost motorist. I didn't see that happen. It continued into the parade route at a high rate of speed.
Crazy, crazy, crazy.
What did you do?
Upon seeing that, I got on my radio in an attempt to notify other personnel assigned to the parade route. I stated that a red SUV had just blown by me.
Do you remember using those exact words, sir?
Objection, that's irrelevant.
Overruled. You may answer.
Oh, shut up, Brooks.
I don't know if I said a red or maroon SUV, but I remember saying that it had blown by me.
Were there parade units still on White Rock attempting to get onto the parade route at that point?
Yes.
Objection.
Were you able to see the vehicle clearly as it went? I'm sorry.
He objected. It's overruled. Go ahead.
From where you were standing there, were you able to turn and watch the SUV as it traveled past you down White Rock towards Main Street?
Objection.
Overruled.
Just ask that.
I only watched it for a short period of time before returning to my squad car, knowing that some sort of police action was going to need to be taken.
What did you do once you got to your squad?
I got in my squad car. It was bombarded with the most terrible
heartbreaking.
is the most terrible thing I ever heard.
The sounds.
Hmm.
You didn't see anything at that point as far as people getting hit?
No.
Okay. I want to show you a video clip, sir. This is
Yeah.
State's Exhibit
This
number
is,
2. And of course,
Look at this guy. I mean, he's like the top guy. He didn't see it, but he heard. He heard all of that. And it's just like, if you are a police officer, thank you for your service. Because many of us often forget, we think of you as, giving us speeding tickets, or I can imagine, like, if you're a highway patrolman, some horrendous car accidents you've probably witnessed and hit and runs, but I can't imagine that anything could measure up to what these people saw at this parade, done by one horrible, soulless person named Darrell Brooks. And you see it with these police officers, and I really hope that they have received the the counseling. I'm assuming it's required for them, but that they need, because that is definitely traumatic. Just and here he is. He's having to leave late to come testify for this douchebag, his carnage. And so he's taking his daughter to college, to take a look at. And I hope that, since it's already past tense now, I guess, I hope that helped him. But can you imagine, this should be a great time for him, thinking about, this new chapter in his daughter's life, but now everyone is suffering the distress, trauma, and horrific actions of this horrible human, and it has affected so many people. It just breaks my heart to see him. At least though we get to see the people that have a heart and don't have a heart. Now, Brooks will go, like, put his head in his hand and do his fake tears, but I don't buy any of it. Nope, nothing will make me think. He's had plenty of time to apologize and show remorse. He's never done it, and he never will. He can't think of anyone beyond himself. Anyhow, I had to say that, because it's just like, I do appreciate you all who serve as police officers, because y'all see some god-awful stuff.
if you could please turn on the state's cable.
Poor man.
Yep, I'll tell you. Okay. I'll show it to you first. So, Sergeant Wanner, if you look at the screen in front of you, we're going to play a video clip. It's pretty short in duration. I want you to watch it first before we show it to the jury. I'm going to ask you some questions, okay?
Okay.
Did you see that clip, sir?
Yes,
Is that a video clip you've seen before?
I have seen that, yes.
Okay. Do you believe that's a true and accurate representation of the SUV traveling on White Rock Avenue near the start of the parade at Main Street?
Yes.
Move for admission and permission to publish, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Brooks?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The state just moved admission of Exhibit 2.
No, I object to that. Keep it.
Please tell me that man or that boy did not say objection. Just keep it. That's a fancy legal term. Oh my Lord, you know, if you don't keep your sense of humor, you'll gouge your eyes out.
All right, the objection's noted, it's overruled. Exhibit 2, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is received. Permission to publish is granted.
Thank you. Please hit play. Sergeant Wanner, is that consistent with the vehicle you saw traveling away from you past the parade floats that were about to enter the route?
Yes.
And is that consistent with the approximate speed you saw it traveling?
Yes.
After you became aware that something terrible was happening on the parade route, your incident commander, what do you do?
I drove in my police vehicle down toward the area that is heard repeated over and over on the radio where the casualties had taken place. That would have been at Main and Gaspar. And once I got to that position, I parked my vehicle as it was impossible to drive any further.
Was there a call made for assistance?
Yes, I don't know who said it, but an officer used a code over the police radio basically requesting police assistance from any officer in the county that would be listening.
Did multiple officers respond
Yes.
from within Waukesha County?
From
Relevant.
Overruled.
Waukesha County and
It is
far
relevant,
beyond.
idiot.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Mr. Brooks, do you have any questions for this
Oh
witness?
God, of course he
Yes, I
does.
do.
Yes, I do.
Good afternoon, officer. First off,
Good afternoon.
I see this is very emotional, so I'm gonna try my best not to keep you up there any longer than you would like to.
You know
be.
what? Shut up. You didn't have to say that. And you don't mean it.
My first question is, I noticed that you are in uniform today.
Yeah,
Is it fair to say that if you weren't here testifying that you would have been on duty today? Is it fair to ask that or say that?
Today is an off day for me, so I would not have been at work today.
So, did you feel the testimony that you would be given at trial today warranted you to be in uniform?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Thank
You do not
you.
need to answer that, sir.
Such a
Next
stupid
question, Mr.
question.
Brooks.
He's been through enough.
You said you've been in duty for 18 years, correct?
Yes.
In any of those 18 years, have you ever come across or had any interaction with the plaintiff in this matter?
Oh, for the love. You'll start that off.
You do not need to answer that, sir. Next question, Mr. Brooks.
How long have you known the plaintiff?
Jeez, man. What a joke.
Sustained. You do not need to answer that, sir. Next question, Mr. Brooks.
Do you see the plaintiff in court today?
Objection. Vague and irrelevant.
Sustained. Next question.
Do you have any knowledge of the plaintiff?
Objection.
Sustained.
Have you ever even seen the plaintiff?
Oh, for the love. Come
Same
on.
objection.
Sustained.
I want to go to the clip that was just shown.
Oh,
Would you like
God.
it shown to the witness again and published to the jury?
I'm sure would he prefer?
I just want to know if that's what you were asking. You can certainly question him about it, and if need be, it can be shown again.
Okay, can you show the witness the video clip again?
Oh, brother. You know it's going to be nonsensical BS.
All right, I can tell from my monitor and the witness monitor it is up, but it is not being projected to the courtroom other than that. You can go ahead and play it. All right, your question, sir?
In that clip, is it fair to say that you can see that there are people walking in the street and on the sidewalk? Would that be fair to say?
Yes, I could see that in the video clip.
Do you see anybody being targeted or being in a panic to get away from
That
the
man
vehicle?
has no time for you and your orange self.
No.
Do you see the said driver of that vehicle intentionally trying to hit anyone in that video?
So stupid.
No.
So what about all the stuff after?
So,
Be fair to say.
again, I would ask, were you brought here today to testify on behalf of the plaintiff?
Oh, God.
Sustained. He already answered that he was why he's here.
You said you weren't going to bother him that much, but you're asking him. You are. He lied again.
Again, I would ask just one more time for the record.
Oh, God.
Did you see the plaintiff in court today?
Objection.
Sustained. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Brooks?
Do you know of the plaintiff at all whatsoever?
Objection.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Thank God.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No.
All right, thank you, Sergeant. You may step down. Is he released from his subpoena?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. He's released.
Your Honor, really quick on the record, if I may.
We're going to call the next witness. We have the jury in the courtroom. Do you have a question, sir?
I'll have a oral tennis motion I would like to be put on the record.
Oh, God.
If you have a motion, you'll have to wait until after the next witness is called. Write it down, submit it on paper, and I'll review whether it's appropriate for this court to address. All right, the state may call the next witness.
Well, that was another delightful installment of Darrell being hideous, soulless, dead eyes. But with each little video, we learn a little bit more how ruthless he really is. They really should brush up on his objections and learn to understand what they really mean. All right. Well, there's that. But I just think it's kind of interesting to kind of take pieces of the night of the attack and how everybody is connected somehow, you know. A lot of them heard about the alleged knife thing, the frame part, but see, that connected them to Erica. And that whole incident that set Brooks off, because that's exactly what made him mad and just decided to drive through there like a maniac. He was mad at Erica because she didn't give him money, and she shouldn't have to. And, you know, just, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching and supporting me. I hope you all take good care of yourselves. Be kind to you. I always get this wrong. Be kind to one another. Not always. Be kind to one another. Be kind to you. And I will see you the next time. I love you guys. Bye.